Allow me to start off with a confession. I've attended many of these ceremonies over the years. If you allow me to say so, the speech by the graduating class representative is by far the best I've ever heard. Dr. Patrick Ewuwa, the president of this famous school, Nananom, cherished members of the board of trustees, our provost, Angela Usu Ansa, distinguished guests, parents and family, and the class of 22, I must single out Rebecca as well. Rebecca. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate the Board of Trustees, the Executive Management Committee, and the academic faculty of this great institution for your recent Times Higher Education Impact rankings as the most influential university in this country, and the most impactful university in this country, and indeed as one of Africa's leading contributors of knowledge capital towards the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I would particularly like to recognize the vision of Patrick and his classmate, Nina Marine, who amidst great skepticism saw the opportunity and the value of a core liberal arts education in Ghana and made great personal sacrifices to bring this into reality. Good institutions, as we all know, are built on solid foundations, and it takes a dream, sacrifice, time, and perseverance to achieve these results. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of this great university has been, and it still is, a living testimony to those values. The founders of this institution can be truly proud of how much has changed in those years, from the very modest rental facility in Labone with a graduating class of 30 students to this very impressive world-class campus and a full-fledged university we see here today. Also, they have every reason to be proud that from those humble beginnings, Ashesi has now emerged as the most impactful university in Ghana. Today, Ashesi is consistently recognized as one of the most innovative, forward-thinking universities on this continent. And for all this to happen in a space of just 20 years is truly remarkable. Ladies and gentlemen, I must say we are all very proud of what has been achieved. And if I may say so, we admire hugely your unwavering commitment as you inch towards the reality of a new dawn. It is truly a privilege to be addressing to you today on this 20th anniversary of the school, having been associated so proudly with this institution right from its inception. In fact, I recall Ashesi was generous enough to make me the first recipient of their honorary doctorate 20 years ago. Now, to the class of 2022, the day you have always cherished and looked forward to so much is finally here. Absolutely no one can deny you the power of this moment. With the support of your parents, guardians, and academic faculty at this university, the work you have done over the last 4 years is finally being recognized today. But before I go further, let me express very warm compliments and congratulations to the parents and guardians of the entire student body of this university. You have made huge sacrifices and toiled unceasingly through very challenging times and circumstances to keep the dreams and aspirations of many of these young ones here alive. We salute you. And now, once again, to the class of 2022, over the course of the last 4 years, You have immersed yourself in the grace of a liberal arts education. You have had the privilege of being taught by some of the best academic brains in our country and in Africa. And you've enjoyed significant support from parents and family. You have done it. This is your moment. Again, congratulations. You've done so much for yourselves, and you have every right to feel that this is it. I wish I could give you that assurance. Unfortunately, I must disappoint you by telling you that it is now that life is going to get real. Indeed, this is not the end of the road. Rather, it is merely the end of an opening chapter. If you thought the hard work was over, then you are about to have a reality check. When you entered this great university 4 years ago, each of you, as we heard, signed on to an honor code upon which you agreed to build your future on a set of values that have provided a foundation for your education. Ashesi has challenged you. It has nurtured you. It has taught you how to think freely and critically. And even more importantly, the school has given you the foundational tools to solve the problems that continue to persist in our society today. And it has done so on a paradigm-shifting bedrock of an ethical and accountable leadership matrix, which post-colonial Africa has lacked for a very long time. Above all, you have learned about the value and importance of teamwork. From your coursework and projects, you've been inculcated with the culture where every member of your team feels valued and seeks to add value. You now know how to work together. You have learned about the power of value-centered recognition and affirmation through your relations with your lecturers and mentors in the school. And you've had the benefit of being mentored by some of the best faculty any university can boast of. But perhaps more importantly, you have been imbued with the discipline of cultivating meaningful relationships. These are invaluable qualities that you are going to need if you want to not only survive, but you want to excel in the world you are about to move into. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that world, I'm afraid, will not always be what you expect. First, transitioning into the world of work can be overwhelming. Luckily, from everything that I hear, Ashesi graduates don't seem to have that problem looking for jobs. I'm told that 100% of those who graduated before you have found jobs or have been accepted into further studies within 6 months of graduation. But with each workforce into which you are placed, given your idealistic sense of expectations of what is possible and what your entrepreneurial can-do spirit, you are bound to face recurring struggles with the mundane, the mediocre, anxiety, exhaustion, etc. Graduates, brace yourselves. On this journey, you will have disappointments. You will have setbacks. And as your colleague says, you will fail in some of your endeavors. It is a very cynical world out there. That world will sometimes indeed make you doubt yourself. Sadly, contemporary Africa is no exception. You may be defined by the ethnicity you belong to or the faith you practice. And you will learn soon enough that you must work with people from backgrounds and worldviews that are completely different from yours. People bristling with ambition and unmitigated prejudices. Graduates, don't allow yourselves to be worn down by these, and don't throw your hands up in despair. Let me make the observation that you will, of course, meet good people too. And how you handle the good and the bad people will determine your success and failure. All this is best captured in one of my favorite poems, the Eve poem by Rudyard Kipling. And I like to quote. It says, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, and blame it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men about you doubt you, and make your allowance for their doubting too. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or you can work with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, If all men count with you, but not too much, none too much. If you can fill the unforgiven minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. Ladies and gentlemen, let the uniqueness of your skin color, the virtue of your ethnicity, the conviction of your faith be the source of confidence for you. But let that be somebody else's burden. Use the integrity of your actions and attitude to manage the avalanche of challenges that you are bound to face. Graduates, trust me, the most potent weapons against prejudice are knowledge and competence. These harsh realities will be faced by all of you, but to a greater extent by the ladies amongst you. Unfortunately, the world out there has not fully appreciated the tremendous role a woman play in society, and therefore, the women amongst you might face even more challenges. As Indra Nooyi, the famous former chief executive of Pepsi Cola, aptly captured in her recently released autobiography, and I quote, "No matter what women do, you are never quite seen as enough," unquote. Indra is a living example of what is possible for a determined woman of destiny. She rose above countless prejudices and difficulties to become the chair and chief executive of Pepsi. As the first woman of color to lead a Fortune 50 company, Indra is one of the most consequential corporate leaders of the 21st century, having achieved an enviable shareholder return on investment of 162%, and by improving Pepsi's revenues of $35 billion when she took over in 2006 to $63 billion in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the history of mankind, when it has mattered the most, women have offered a reliable pair of steady hands to steer the affairs of nations from critical downtowns to turnaround success stories. Notable leaders in the last 60 years have included Golda Meir of Israel, Winnie Mandela of South Africa, Indira Gandhi of India, Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom, and Angela Merkel of Germany, to name but a few. Coming closer home, in this country, I've had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working or striking close acquaintances with some extraordinarily talented women, some of whom are now heading a select number of the biggest companies and public institutions in Ghana. These include Mansa Neti of Standard Chartered Bank, Abna Osepuku of Absa Ghana, Efuache, that young chief financial officer of the Bank of England, Ghanaian, Minimi Dakon of Food and Drugs Authority, Beatrice Ajiman of Media General, Patricia Obonai of Vodafone, Patient Chachianu of Holland Insurance, Lucy Quist, formerly of Airtel, and now the managing director in London of Morgan Stanley. And there's also in here with me, my own wife, who is here, who a uniquely talented and inspiring woman who conceived and built Africa's first 5-star Marriott hotel from scratch. Not forgetting my daughter Tamara, who after school chose the entrepreneurial route and set up what has become arguably Ghana's biggest event management company. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few of the women who have shown that prejudice cannot stop a person who is determined to succeed. And these are women who, against all odds, have broken the glass ceiling for your generation to emulate and perhaps even surpass. These challenges which you ladies will face can be daunting, but they are not insurmountable. And perhaps the story of my own professional career will give you some encouragement in facing them. In 1973, long before most of you were born, after my studies in the United Kingdom, I returned to Ghana to work with Ashanti Goldfish in Ghana. This company had been in existence from 1895. It was a company largely run by whites, and at that time, it had a horrible reputation for discriminating against black employees. And even as late as 1973, almost 16 years after Ghana had achieved political independence, there were obvious no-go areas for blacks within that organization. As a young employee of that predominantly white-managed company, I was fortunate to have an inspiring father who would often remind me that, and I quote, "Working for a white man in a white man's company, if you want to make progress, when they are sleeping, you should be running," unquote. This became my mantra, and I made a personal decision to challenge their prejudices through my performance. I would often stay at home, at work, and work much later than all my colleagues to inspect work being done underground. In a nutshell, I decided very early on in my career to let my performance speak for itself. And whatever the monthly target was, my team was motivated to produce more. This created a problem for management, who could not ignore our performance when the time came for promotion. Similarly, as my father inspired me to rise to the challenge that I faced my time as a fresh graduate, I would also like to encourage you and urge you to have mastery of your craft, for that is the best assurance for progress in an environment which even the biggest of all biases that you are set to encounter in your professional lives cannot defeat. Don't ever settle for mediocre, and don't entertain complacency in your life. And now back to all of you graduates, men and women alike. Don't allow anybody to intimidate you and convince you that you have not earned your place at the table. Become the visionary leaders that you have been prepared to evolve to. I believe in each and every one of you, and I'm persuaded that you have what it takes to imagine and create a new era of unprecedented visionary accomplishments that would bring needed transformation on this our dear continent. With its enviable reputation, Ashesi University attracts people from all over Africa and the world. For you, this offers a great opportunity for relationships and networking. And I want you to take that very, very seriously. It is not an accident that you have met all the people that you have studied with here, played with, partied with over the last 4 years. It is indeed a matter of destiny. And each positive relationship you have cultivated here is an enabler of that destiny. With a global reputation and graduates in top companies across the world, from the best banks to the most innovative tech startups, I can assure you, you have the network to draw upon. So as you move out from here, keep your relationships, nurture them, harness them. They may well be the lifeblood of your career as you climb the ladder of life. Indeed, it is not by accident that you are here at this moment. Some of the biggest businesses you see today were built by classmates who kept their ties alive and who, in time, tapped into each other's knowledge, capital, and, of course, networks. A typical example is the PayPal mafia. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Max Lechtin, Andrew McCormick, Peter Thiel, and others, a group of students, half of them graduated from Stanford and half of them from University of Illinois, who founded PayPal and who have since developed additional technology companies such as Tesla, LinkedIn, Palantir, SpaceX, Affirm, Slide, YouTube, and the others, adding billions of dollars to the world economy and creating millions of jobs. This group of like-minded friends were able to climb up the ladder of life because they each realized the power of their respective gifts during their moments together. Some of us do remember with regrets the relationships we neglected or took for granted in our formative years that could have changed our destinies for the better through effective partnering synergies that would have endured the tides of time. That stated, people in my generation can be excused if we put the burden of blame on the information, communication, and technology limitations of our time. But your generation has no excuse. Your friend is only a Zoom call away, and at the click of a button, WhatsApp, Snapchat, or Instagram, you can share moments in real time and at any time, anywhere. at a click of a button, you do have the ability to make new friends and build new relationships outside of the school and across the world. Please always reflect on what has kept you and your friends together here, comprising the uniquely human attributes of empathy, kindness, compassion, and companionship. Tap into those attributes and use them as you create new relationships in life to maintain the bonds that we have created here. And for those of you who might be going out of the country to pursue new work opportunities or further academic studies, please cherish your family and maintain its bonds and ties. Ladies and gentlemen, the unique focus of this great school on ethical leadership is a great opportunity to cause significant transformation in the development of our nation, Ghana, and Africa as a whole. Ashesi is perhaps one of the few, if not the only university in Africa that has developed such a consensuous undercode and policy of ethics and integrity, which it deliberately and systematically seeks to inculcate, to instill into every graduate here, and which will in turn foster an enduring principle of accountability, humanity, sacrifice, and devotion. As someone who has traveled widely and done business across several African countries, I see firsthand the gaps in governance and the difficult issues of development directly. Undoubtedly, the post-independence aspirations for development in most African countries have not been sadly realized. Poverty, infrastructure deficit, substandard education, unemployment are creating an environment which is engendering a sense of hopelessness and despair amongst the general populace and especially amongst the youth. It is generally agreed that in a large measure, the problem has to do with the lack of ethical leadership at all levels of society, manifesting itself in blatant corruption in many of our institutions, a judiciary which is not perceived to render justice, parliaments which for whatever reason are unable to keep executive in check, the media which must keep governments in check but cannot do so because they are compromised. Constitutions are changed to suit the whims and caprices of leaders. Accountability seems an alien concept, and the culture of leaving legacies is absent. If indeed the African problem is a direct consequence of a lack of ethical leadership, then isn't it a shame that Ashesi graduates in whom the principle of ethics have been instilled are not venturing into one area where they can have the most impact? Ashesi graduates should not only be in industry and the private sector. Patrick, ladies and gentlemen, as I've said repeatedly, I cannot be prouder of what each university has achieved. When I visited your website and saw the list of companies where your graduates are working at or have founded, I was immensely impressed. But then it suddenly struck me that if this school has been producing all of these ethically conscious leaders over the last 20 years, how come we don't see your alumni in prominent places in public service? When we talk about creating an enabling environment for businesses to triumph, we are talking about political leadership and the governance that goes with it. Africa's problem is not a lack of entrepreneurship, but it is the environment to nurture it. Now, how do we create that enabling environment if our best graduates, purposefully trained as ethical leaders, are not venturing into public service? My dear friends, whatever ideas you may have in mind, and whatever businesses you are likely to create or careers you intend to build, all of these will depend on the environment within which you operate. If that environment is progressive, you will prosper. If that environment is not progressive, you will get stunted. And unless you are ready to throw your ethics to the dogs, in which case your years of training here would have been in vain. At the same time, none of you can live in isolation from the enduring impact of toxic environments in which mediocrity is an ossified norm. Do well to understand that no matter how well-intended your dreams might be, you will ultimately be affected by the all-consuming stench of inertia that any abysmally decadent and corrupt society can infuse into the inner recesses of the inner man of your soul. I believe that you are the refreshing, possibly the incorruptible generation of change agents that Africa has been so anxiously waiting for. You are the generation of ethical leaders Africa needs to inspire the reconstruction of its civil service. We need your ethical leadership in public operations. We need your ethical leadership across our parliaments. We need your ethical leaderships in our courts. We need your ethical leaderships as ministers of state. And sure, we need your ethical leadership across our presidential palaces. The example of Wellesley College in the US comes to mind. A small but well-known liberal arts college with educational philosophy and orientation similar to yours has produced many graduates who have distinguished themselves in the public service. The school has given birth to a flourish of women leaders straddling all sectors of the society. They include Song Manling, who was a powerful former First Lady of China, Madeleine Albright, we lost her recently, the first ever African-American female Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, the first woman in the state to be nominated as presidential candidate of a major political party, Diane Sawyer, an accomplished American broadcast journalist at the Disney-owned ABC television, and many others. The uniqueness, ladies and gentlemen, of these women is that they rose to the challenge of leading great social reforms in their spheres of professional pursuit. Without good governance, ladies and gentlemen, enabled by ethical leadership, there is no viable ecosystem within which new sustainable businesses can be created, which will generate desperately needed employment and create wealth. This is a problem that many societies, even from ancient Greece, have grappled with. Indeed, the great philosopher Plato advocated and urged that the most competent citizens and the most knowledgeable citizens must seek political office. Otherwise, this void will be filled with the morally weak and incompetent citizens. We urgently need to adhere to this advice if we are to overcome what I consider to be our continent's greatest challenge. Thus, Patrick, this is my challenge to each and every one of you as your graduates graduate today. Let the mighty stream of ethics overflow from your innermost being and flood our dysfunctional public sector throughout the continent, thereby cleansing it of the plague of mediocrity that has held this continent down for so long. And let it be said 20 years from now that Ashesi gave us that unique visionary leader that changed Africa's destiny forever. And now I'd like to end with a quotation from our revered former president, our late President Kwame Nkrumah, who in his address at the opening of the Institute of African Studies in 1963 said, and I quote, "We must regard education as the gateway to the enchanted cities of the mind, and not only as a means to personal economic security and social privilege. Indeed, education consists not only in the sum of what a man knows or the skill with which he can put this to his own advantage. The educated man or woman should be so sensitive to the conditions around him or her that she makes it his chief endeavor to improve these conditions for the good of all," unquote. My charge to you is to go out there and make the difference in society that you want. Class of 22, if not you, then who else? Okay. So, just to show you how modern I am, I'm going to quote from Nicki Minaj. In one of his songs, it says, and I quote, "Starships are meant to fly." You are the newly minted starships. Go out there and fly. Thank you very much.